Hi everyone, this is Michael Caruso and welcome to this video essay which is going to be part of my final project for this video game analysis course. Um, for those of you that were not aware, I decided to do a continuation of my artifact presentation for this class, and I wanted to, in that presentation I had discussed Tycoon games, and so for this final presentation I wanted to give a live demonstration of one of those Tycoon games here, being Roller Coaster Tycoon 2. And so what I plan on doing for you all here is to play through and hopefully manage to complete one of the levels of the game while explaining some of the terms that I had discussed in my artifact presentation. Just basically a continuation of the stuff that I discussed in the artifact presentation using the same definitions, but at the same time I figured it'd be cool to bring a little bit of a visual aspect to the game, or to the presentation I should say, using the actual game itself, Roller Coaster Tycoon 2. So, before we get into the level, I figured I'd give a little bit of my experience with this game, and maybe about Tycoon games as a whole. So, I don't really remember how old I was when I got this game, but I remember that my dad had purchased this for me. Both my parents, I should say. They had just found out about games like Zoo Tycoon, Roller Coaster Tycoon, and they had. I remember this story. My dad and my mom were at the mall, and I believe they were at the now somewhat defunct Discovery store, and my dad and my mom, they had a Windows, I think it was like a Windows 98 or 95, one of the two, on display, and it had like a Sesame Street Elmo game on there. I believe I still have that game somewhere in my collection, and my dad told me, he was like, oh man, we thought this was like the coolest thing ever, and we have to get this for Michael, we know he'd enjoy it. And so they had, gotten a PC for the house along with just a bunch of games. And this one in particular, Roller Coaster Tycoon, both 1 and 2, are ones that I have the most fond memories of. This is still one of my all-time favorite games for the PC. Whenever I discuss these kind of games, I always find elements of joy and nostalgia, as well as like Zoo Tycoon is another big one, The Sims, just those 3 games in particular. Excuse me. I played every version of them. I had the expansion packs, the sequels. I basically played the heck out of this. If you notice in the top left corner here, this is not just Roller Coaster Tycoon 2. This is Roller Coaster Tycoon 2 with 2 of the expansion packs for the game, being Wacky Worlds and Time Twister. This was a bundle pack that I found on Steam, and I decided to buy and play, not just for the sake of this project, but just because I really wanted to have that connection with playing these games again. And I could not believe that they had both of these games available. So seeing this all once again is just bringing back so many memories right now. But like I said, I played a lot of this game when I was little, and I still have so many memories of it. Looking at it now, I remember so much of the game, and we'll get back into that shortly, obviously. So, as I had stated, the purpose of this game is to show you all a little bit of Roller Coaster Tycoon 2, show you all some live gameplay, which could be pretty fun, but at the same time, I'd like to explain further a little bit of those terms that I had discussed in the artifact presentation, mainly having to do from the article by Ian Bagost, which deals with video game rhetoric and how games like this are analyzed, as well as the video game dictionary by Jewel, because I think this is kind of like a culmination, which is what I had intended originally with the completion of this project. But enough from me. We're going to get into some gameplay. So I'm going to go down here to start a new game. And as you can see here, I've already made a lot of progress in completing some of the levels of this game. For the sake of time for this project, I don't think I'm going to complete... I don't think I'm going to be able to manage to complete a challenging or an expert part. I think we're just going to stick to the beginner parts, just because that's the easiest for me to talk about. as well as for you all to see and discuss. And I think I have a pretty good idea as to what level I'm going to play for you all here. But real quick, let's just go through the levels here. So as you can see, there are a bunch of groups here. There is the beginner, the challenging, the expert, as well as the real parks, which are actual Six Flags parks. This was a big connection to Six Flags through Roller Coaster Tycoon 2, and the other, which is basically the real parks, but you start from a blank slate, and you can build essentially anything you want with these actual parks. Excuse me, grab the drink real quick. Um, so yeah, I'm going to go ahead and do a beginner park, and as you can see here, there's parks mixed in from the expansion packs, and the ones on the bottom here are from the base game Roller Coaster Tycoon 2, and we're going to complete one of those for you guys. Or I'm going to attempt to complete one of those here. So, I think I'm going to do Crazy Castle. I remember this level pretty fondly, but I don't think I ever got the chance to complete it, and I figure this would be a good way for me to demonstrate to you all the aspects of the game without, doing anything too crazy. So we're going to go ahead and do that. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and load into this level. Okay, so this is Roller Coaster Tycoon 2. This is the interface. This is what we're given. So, as you can see here, we have a little bit of our objectives on the main screen. We have the name of the park, which is already open, and our objective. We have to have at least 1,500 guests in this park at the end of October year 4 with a park rating of at least 600. And if we look down here, we currently have 3 guests, 4, with a park rating of 500. So that means we're going to have to do some decorating. So this is the interface of the game. This is the blank slate. This is what we're working with here. So whenever you start a park in Roller Coaster Tycoon 2, this is essentially what you are given to work with. So I'm actually going to go ahead and pause the game here just so we can get an idea as to the space that we're given to work with in this game. As you can see, if we zoom out here, this is essentially the boundaries of the park, but it stretches out to beyond this castle area. But this is what we're working with here. And so, one of the terms that had been brought up in my artifact presentation as well as the Boghost article, excuse me, is the term of the possibility space. And Ian Boghost defines that possibility space as when players explore the possibility space allowed by the rules of the game by changing the figurative systems provided by the game itself. Alrighty. So essentially what that means is that every player that begins Roller Coaster Tycoon 2 is given this blank slate to work with, and they are able to approach the level in any way that they see fit. There are certain rules within the game that allow the player to express themselves in a way that is different from every other player, which I think is actually really unique about games like this, is that any person can approach the level in any way they see fit. So, we are given a lot to work with here. We're only given $10,000 to start with, but of course that number is going to increase once we get more guests to enter the park. So if we click down here, you can see here the price is free admission, and so a lot of our funds are going to come from what we make from rides and sales from like food stands and things of that nature. So one of the things that I think we should do right away is that we don't need guests to wander around this entire area. And I think with the small funds that were given at the start, I think it would be crucial to block off some of these extra paths. So I'm going to click up here where it says scenery. I'm going to keep the game paused just for a little bit. And up here we have signs and different items like that, like benches, bins, lampposts, and things of that nature. But we want to get the sign here. And so I'm also going to change the color. Unfortunately, the text box in the way. Let me see if I can hide this real quick. I'm gonna put this down on the bottom actually. There we go. Okay, so we have a bunch of color options here, which I think is one of the great creative options for a game like this. We're gonna go with green, and let's go with a darker green. That looks fine. We're gonna put that right here. Oh, of course, have to unpause the game first. And we're gonna make this a no entry, so guests know not to walk anywhere they shouldn't be. We're also gonna put some here at the base of these buildings down here. Make these all no entry signs, just because we want the guests to stay in one central area so nobody gets lost and they're not walking anywhere that they shouldn't be. Get another one right there. And one more. See? Already one's wandering somewhere where they shouldn't be. But I think that should be good. I'm just going to do a quick scroll around the park. I don't want them on this upper part, so we're going to put it right there. And I think that's good. Right here. And this just makes sure that, guest happiness can be maintained at least for a little bit. Once we expand the park, then we'll be able to let them wander around in this top part. But for now, we just want to make sure that they are in one central area. So this whole area over here, I usually make this like a food court area. So that's what we're going to do. So right here is the rides. This is like the bread and butter of any Roller Coaster Tycoon game. So we have a variety of categories available. We have a transport ride. We have some gentle rides. We have a lot of options here. We also have our coasters, which is obviously a big part of the game. We've got some thrill rides, some water rides, and the food and drink stalls. And right here is a tab for research. We'll get to that in a minute. For now, let's put down a few food and drink stands just so guests have something to munch on as they're wandering about the park. So we'll go ahead and put down a fry shop. We'll put down some pats. We'll open this up and we'll add a few more just to give the guests something to work with. We're also going to put an information kiosk right at the front so guests can get some umbrellas and also get a very important map to the park. That's usually what I do when I begin these kinds of levels, and I'll get more into that momentarily. We'll put down a drink stand, which is pretty important. And we're also going to go with, well, we probably obviously should have a restroom. We'll put that down right here. And we'll do like a few more food and drink stands. How about some popcorn? Right there. And let's go with some ice cream right across from the drinks. Delete some pens, that's fine. And some lemonade right there. And of course, if I'm going to be giving guests this, I'm going to go ahead and throw down some litter bins because we do not want that kind of issue in the park. We'll throw some down here, and we'll also include a bunch of benches so the guests can sit down and enjoy their food. It should be good. Okay, so one of the things that I'd like to discuss right away was the idea of procedurality. This was also discussed in the Bogost article, and in particular, Bogost states that games are made with a thoughtful purpose and represent models of systems that players can take up residence in. So that is needless to say, if I were to just sit here and do nothing, if I did not put down the food stands and things of that nature, then I wouldn't be able to learn the functions of the game. because I have so much experience with a game like this, and the interface has done a very excellent job in teaching new players, I now know how to play this level based on past experience. And to think that after all these years, this game coming out in the 1990s, it now being 2021, and the ideas of this game still sticking with me after all of these years. Um, you know, that says a lot about the procedurality seen in Tycoon games. I think these guys need a ride. Now that I'm sitting here talking about that, we're going to go ahead and do a stable of the Roller Coaster Tycoon series, and that's going to be a merry-go-round. We're going to put that right up here. And every ride needs an entrance and an exit. Add some pads, and we need to make a queue, which I always thought was kind of tricky for some reason because I like doing these little like zigzag queues. So let's go right there. That is perfect. There we go. Now, as I've stated, the possibility space, as you can see here, we have the option to customize things involving the ride, including the colors and the entrance itself. And because we're in a castle, I think we have to do the castle entrance, obviously. I like the green theme we got going here. We're just going to go with that. We're going to name this Castle Carousel. That's fun, right? And as we open it, we'll get to see one of the most delightful things about this game, in my opinion. Yeah, get a little carousel music going so guests can walk up and go on the ride as they see fit. So, that's basically how Roller Coaster Tycoon works, essentially. You build rides and facilities and make sure guests are happy, and that's how you make money in this game. I'm going to go ahead and put down a few more things before I get into another discussion about one of the things from my artifact presentation. So we're going to go ahead and do a thrill ride here. Let's go with the twist, which I find hilarious that in the original game this ride was actually called a scrambled egg. I don't know why, but I always thought it was kind of funny to me. Should I do some scenery? I'm tempted to do something kind of unique and different. Let's do some castle walls. Might look cute for the castle entrance, and like I said, this is mainly for the purpose of demonstration. And the fact that every person has the ability to approach a level differently, which I think is really fun and unique about these kind of games. And there are so many options for customization, and obviously like the big key here is just trying to stay within the budget, which is relatively reasonable in games like this, which I can definitely appreciate. Bring out the queue. I don't know, medieval twist. You can see I'm going for a theme here with some of the names that I chose. But that's what's most fun about games like this, is that you have so many options just to make the rides your own, add your little unique flair to it. And I think that's one of the definitely really enjoyable things about these kind of games. And there we go. Yeah, that's fun, right? Now, I don't want to go too overboard too fast because, as I've stated, we don't have a large budget to work with. But this is one of the more easier levels. When the game gets more challenging, then things get a lot more tricky. But the good thing is that Roller Coaster Tycoon 2 does not pressure the player in that they are able to complete the levels in any, I guess, there's no set order. You can play the stages in any form that you want. You can go like expert level first if you feel that you're ready and well enough. There are a lot of challenges that are involved with playing some of the more difficult levels, but the game definitely does have a lot of reward involved, which I think is really cool. Now I think I'm going to go for a maze. Eventually, or we might have enough money to do a coaster. And this crazy castle one is really fun, honestly, in my opinion. So, I think the preset designs are also really good for new players because uh, a lot of players, there's a potential to feel pressure when it comes to building a design from scratch. So I can appreciate that the game offers a lot of options for new players to get into it. Chosen name in use already. Oh, duh, it's the name of the park. Castle Capers, I don't know. Okay, so we have 3,000 to work with currently. I'd like to show you all the coaster designing process. And I think we're going to do that shortly. But there's one major thing that I almost forgot to do, besides putting down this first aid room. We need to hire some staff, because ride maintenance and park maintenance is key. And so, I'll get to that, what just appeared at the bottom momentarily. We need to put down some handyman. We're going to let's hire 3 to start. And we'll also do a mechanic. And that's going to be it. I'm not going to worry about the other 2. Just because I want to keep the strategy fairly simple at the start of the game. So, given this area should be enough to build a very basic coaster. But I don't think 3,400 is enough to work with. So, we can work around this momentarily. I'm going to decide which coaster I want. I want something basic, not too crazy, and so I think the safest thing is going to be this junior roller coaster right here. So this is a big part of Roller Coaster Tycoon and Roller Coaster Tycoon 2. It's building your own custom rides and adding your own personal touch to it. So let's go ahead and do a little bit of a basic coaster with some added flair to it. So we're going to build the station right here. And let's start with a downhill curve with a small turn right here, and let's go into the chain lift. This is going to bring the train up the hill, obviously, and we'll go about there. Small hill to bring it around. Let's go with this kind of curve, and down. Let's go 1, 2, about there, and then back up. This is 75 feet. Let's go up to 65. Nothing too crazy, and we'll go back down to 55. And we'll do a small, let's do a small helix down. Down again. And then up again. With more curves, let's go. Yeah, that looks fine. Back down. Nothing too crazy, pretty basic, but some added level of enjoyment here. And now one last big curve to the station, which should line up right here. And we'll add some brakes. And we have a completed coaster, just like that. I have just completed a roller coaster. Now granted, I was able to do that in nothing flat because I've been playing this game for a long time, but the game offers the player a lot of incentive to go about designing a coaster in any way that they choose. And as you can see, I did all that with it remaining in budget, which I think is doubly impressive on my part. And as you can see at the top here, plenty of customization options. I'm going to go with the log trains because it kind of matches the castle theme we're going on here. Excuse me. So now, one of the coolest things about Roller Coaster Tycoon and Roller Coaster Tycoon 2 is being able to test the ride. So, let's go ahead and do that. And this is the coaster that we just created, and we get to see it in action, which I think is definitely one of the most unique things about this kind of game. There were games like Sim Coaster, which allowed you to have a first-person point of view when riding the rides that you created, and also later versions of Roller Coaster Tycoon allowed you to do the same thing. So, our coaster's going around, and there it goes. Nothing too crazy, just a pretty basic ride that guests should be able to enjoy. Heading back to the station, and there we go, plain and simple. It was a lot of fun. So, the stats should be coming in shortly. This is an important part of designing rides here. So, what I just did was explored a little bit of the procedurality. Bagos says that games are made with a thoughtful purpose and represent models of systems that players can take up residence in. The player is allowed to figure out the mechanics of the game on their own once they gain an idea as to how it works. And I was able to use the rule set given to me by Roller Coaster Tycoon 2 in order to create this coaster. And if we look at the stats here, you can see, there we go. This is what guests are going to think of the ride once they be able to experience it together. Now, as you can see down here, the money situation is a little bit tricky, so I'm going to have to take out a loan. So we'll raise it up to 14,000 just to be safe, and now we'll make it a path for the guests to get on the coaster. Make it nice and big right here, and we'll make the exit path nice and short, just so guests can quickly get in and get out. And we'll probably do a bunch of benches here because I think they said something about the nausea being higher than usual. So we'll put down a bunch of these along with some bins just in case. And we're going to name this one the Castle Crusaders. Castle Crusaders. And we're also going to do something else. We're going to add some music, because I think this was definitely another way for players to have customization options in this game. This is completely optional, but a lot of fun, and allows people to approach levels in their own way. So we're going to go with the medieval style, and let's go ahead and open. Yeah, we have our first coaster in the park, which I think is really fun and really cool. We're going to add some scenery. Let's go with some trees, so guests can act like they're zooming around the trees when they're on this coaster, which I think is really fun and unique. We're going to put some down here. And we'll also add some more of this castle scenery because I think it's really fun and unique. Adds a little bit of a personal touch to the game. And that should be good. And so and look at this queue is starting to fill up. And so we'll be able to see guests ride the Castle Crusaders and interact with it, which I think is really fun and really, really cool. So, our goal is to be able, like I said, if we click here, we'll be able to see that our park rating is where it needs to be. We need a park rating of at least 600, we've got 800. Now, the thing we need to work on the most is the 1,500 guests. Right now, we've got 180, so we're at a ways to go, but I think we're making some pretty good progress so far. Now, the important thing is just, to not run out of money and just keep playing the level as usual. Now, one of the things I had discussed in my artifact presentation is the aspect of literacy, which I think is very, very crucial in Tycoon games. Uh, but Ghost states that players can learn conditions of the world that is modeled by video games. And I think that Roller Coaster Tycoon 2 in particular does a good job of allowing the player to figure out on their own how best to approach any level based on the skill that they've gathered and how well they've learned the mechanics of the game. That is to say that once you begin to play levels and gain an idea as to how the systems of the game work, then playing some of the later levels and doing processes like what I've just done becomes very, very easy to understand. Which I think is one of the most unique things about not only Roller Coaster Tycoon and Roller Coaster Tycoon 2, but Tycoon games in general. Going back to procedural rhetoric, if I want to successfully beat a level like this, I have to, gain successful rides, advertise for the park, and do a bunch of other things, and this becomes easier due to the increased level of literacy that I have. And there's also some reward to experimentation. With all the stuff that I've done, it doesn't have to be the same for every single person. They could, another person could play this exact level and say that, they would have designed the coaster differently, or that would have been the first thing that they did. They wouldn't have maybe put the maze here, and, there's freedom in all these options, which I think is really, really unique and fun about these kind of games. So, let's build some more to this park. Maybe I can explain some more of these features. So, right here is the research. As you can see, there's a little bit of funding that goes into the stuff that is researched that you can unlock for your park, including new rides, new scenery, things of that nature. I don't think scenery is a key thing here, and I also don't think shops and stalls are as important. We want to focus on the rides. And then we can determine how much funding goes into research every single month of the year, which is down here. You'll see also that weather is a factor, mainly rain. Rain is a big one, and a lot of times, because guests would decide whether or not they want to go on a ride in the rain, and also a lot of them choose to scramble and go after umbrellas at the information kiosk, which is down here. So as you can see at the bottom, we unlocked a swinging inverter ship, which I think is going to add a nice level of thrill to the park. And I'm going to go over here next to the twist. Let's go ahead and put that there. Oh, it's backwards. I'm going to go ahead and flip that around. There we go. Perfect. I never understood where that goes. Also, here's another thing. There's a strategy to this. I don't want the queues to be too long, because guests do have, and this has happened multiple times, where they've actually gotten really upset due to long queue times. Oh, and so as you can see, I'm discussing the weather, and this happens to occur. It is raining, and so sometimes guests have a hard time deciding whether or not they want to go on a ride in the middle of a rainstorm. They'll also scramble for the information kiosk in order to grab an umbrella. So there's certain mechanics of the game that you become accustomed to after playing levels for a certain amount of time. Let's go with, I don't know, the Knight's Journey. I'm doing like a castle theme. Oh my gosh, I can't spell. With all the rides that I choose. At least I'm attempting to, which I think is pretty fun. Go ahead and open that, and there we go. I was gonna say something. Oh, let's talk about the guest itself. Let's go with this person. We'll just have Sam S be our demonstration here. So this is what you see on when you select the guest, and as you can see, a little thought just popped up. So if we click on the thought bubbles, you can see that they're satisfied with the park, but they chose not to go on the Castle Capers maze ride in the middle of the rain, which I think makes a lot of sense, and is also pretty cool that the developers decided to give the guests personalities and make them as if they were actual guests that you have to look after. Um, and one of the most unique things is that these guests are modeled the same. Gender is not a factor. They all are represented by these little avatars, which I think is really cool. And you can all see the same thing with every single guest. That being the mood, as you can see, this person is hungry, so um, and they're in the middle of a queue right now, so they should be able to work their way over to the food. But I might add a little bit of incentive. I think I'm going to go ahead and add another path that goes out of the exit of the twist, that goes straight to the food area, and also this will help these guests find their way to the exit faster. So there's a method to the madness, I guess I would say. You can also see how much money they've spent, what rides they've been on, what their favorite ride is, and what they're carrying. So it's a little bit of a micromanagement that goes into games like Roller Coaster Tycoon, among others. So, let's see here. What other rides can we build in the meantime? That would be good for me to show you guys here how this game works. I think we can't go wrong with a Ferris wheel, right? We have a good mix of gentle as well as thrill, so I think this would be cute to have in the back of the park, just for like guests that are a fan of the more gentle rides to experience. The queue isn't going to be perfect, but like I said, this is mainly for demonstration purposes. I'm trying to delete this part of path here. If I scramble to there we go. Perfect. We're just going to call it Ferris wheel because I can't think of any medieval-ish names off the top of my head. Yeah, like I said, I think it's good to have a nice variety of rides in the park. We'll stick with these colors. I don't mind that, actually. Okay, let's see here. So it's currently June of year 1, and we have until October of year 4 to get those 1,300 guests in the park. So a lot of this game is going to be sitting around waiting for things to happen, which honestly is not going to be well received by a lot of you all, I imagine. I remember our discussion on games like Animal Crossing and a lot of you being very indifferent about games that literally force the player to wait around and see how things happen. At the same time, games like this could be a very nice stress reliever. So there's definitely both sides of the spectrum here when it comes to this kind of game. And we'll get to something else in a minute, but a lot of times games like this seem to be a little bit indifferent, and unless you played this game firsthand, it's hard to sell the idea to someone that the idea of the game is to wait and to see what happens. But it's more than just waiting. It's planning and strategizing and trying to figure out the best way to complete a level. So these little specks on the ground, that's vomit, and so we're going to go ahead and take care of that real quick. Let's hire another handyman, because a lot of guest happiness has to deal with how you maintain certain aspects of the park, including, if the park is clean. So what I'm doing right now is setting a patrol area for this handyman. So he's going to stick to in front of the Castle Crusaders, which has a little bit of a higher nausea rating than some of the other rides in the park at the moment. Okay. Let's see here. I figure I might as well do another ride while I have a little bit more funds left over, but this is tricky. Oh, we got an award. Look at that. The safest park in the country. Now, if I'm being completely honest, I'm still, I'm playing this game, and I played this since childhood. Since I was a child, I should say. I don't know what the awards do, if I'm being completely honest. I don't know if there's a cash bonus or anything like that. In Zoo Tycoon, when you received awards, there was a little thing saying, oh, the government or whatever has decided to give you a bonus of X amount of dollars for receiving this award. I don't know what they do in a game like this, other than maybe for some notoriety aspect. So I find that interesting that there's still so much of this game to be figured out. So I was going to, going back to what I was saying, I was going to build one more ride, but that loan is going to catch up with me in more ways than one. So I'm actually going to pay this back a little bit, because one of the absolute worst feelings in this game is to run out of money and you're just in the red, and it is horrible. So I think the safest thing for us to do is just to repay it back little by little and to see excuse me, I apologize for that. I am coming off of a very bad sickness right now. Yeah, so I think one of the most important things to do is to not go overboard too soon, is to let the game do its thing and to let guests casually work their way into the park and to make as much fun as we can before we go completely overboard. Because as you can see, the money's kind of fluctuating between going up and down. I'm not 100% sure what the reasoning behind it is, but we do know that going in the red too soon would be disastrous, and that's, you know, one of the things that we're trying to avoid here. So we might do one more cheap ride, just in case. But like I said, try not to go overboard here. Honestly, can't go wrong with a spiral slide. And I'm not 100% against having another gentle, you know. It might seem like we're not taking a risk here, having too many crazy rides, but at the same time, that's something I'm okay with. And once we get enough money to make those kinds of decisions, then we'll be able to go from there. Like I said, just try not to go overboard too soon here. It's definitely a unique color scheme here. Castle, I don't know. What's like another word for twist? Spiral. I'm trying to think of medieval themed names here. This is embarrassing. Let's just go with Knights. Yeah, forget it. Spirals. Ah, dang it. There's no pressure to naming the names. It's just a matter of expressing creativity, which I think is perfectly fine, and I'm glad that the developers made that decision. I'm gonna clean up some of this vomit here. Okay, and also, I might put in another restroom just in case, because we don't want anything drastic to happen. Okay, I think that should be good. So now it's a matter of hopefully having our money go back up. And if not, well, we can live and learn and attempt this scenario at another time and figure out what went wrong and how to approach the level as best we can next time. There's no pressure in replaying the level over and over. In fact, it's encouraged if you want to ensure that the job is getting done correctly, which I think is really, really good for a game like this to have. Ooh, the ghost train. Nice. It's going to be interesting to see how that works. I'm just making some quick changes here. There we go. So, I'm just going to let the game play out for a second. And actually, Um, Okay, I apologize for that, ladies and gentlemen, but I legitimately had to leave the room for a minute. Um, but it looks like the park is still maintained the same, but the problem is I don't know why we're not making any money. Uh, this is a bit of a concern for me, if I'm being completely honest. So if I check out the budgets here, it looks like a lot is being taken out by the loan. The research is a problem, so I think we're going to switch to minimum. And yeah, as you can see here, this is aspects of the park. This is every single thing that you have to take into account in order to make sure that the park, excuse me, makes money and is, and then you're able to meet your objectives at the end of what the game is required of you. This could also be a potentially tricky scenario, so that's another thing to consider. Let's go ahead and pick up some more of this litter here and see what we can do to make some money. I say that as a guest literally vomits right in front of me, which I think is pretty hilarious, actually. I feel like we need another coaster. The only problem is, excuse me, is whether or not I'm willing to take out some money for it, and at this point, I think I pretty much have to be. I'm gonna add some benches and bins over here, though. This is another case of risk and reward. And at this point, I think it pretty much will be worth it. So, let's go ahead and take out a little bit more of our loan. And we'll build a coaster. I think we're going to use a custom design that I had built in a previous scenario. This game allows you to make and design make custom designs for coasters, and you can save them and use them in other parks, which I think is really fun, unique, and another cool aspect that doesn't put too much pressure on the player. So this is a wooden mine coaster design called the Engineer that I had designed in a previous scenario of the game. So we'll go ahead and connect the path here. And this tool here is really good for greening paths at higher levels. Almost down here, nice and zigzaggy, which I think is pretty hilarious, and we're definitely going to want to put a no entry sign so guests don't accidentally wander up like the one that just did. We'll go ahead and fix that. There we go. And we'll change the color scheme to match the park. That works. Let's go this grayish color. And instead of the Engineer, let's go with again, I want to do something castle themed, so let's go with the Journey. Medieval Journey. Wait, did I already use that name? I feel like I did. What's another thing that's associated with medieval times? Or castles, so let's go with the King's Court. There we go. So there we go. We've taken a design that I've already made and we made it unique. We've made it our own, and now guests will be able to interact with it. I think we're gonna raise the price just because we need to make some money. So let's go. Let's go $4.20, and we're also going to raise the price of the Castle Crusaders just because I think coasters in general should be charged more. So we're gonna go $4 a ride, but that should be good for everything else. And we're gonna repay $2,000 of the loan because sooner or later that is going to get pretty red pretty fast. It's just a matter of when. The top spin is now available, and that's usually a pretty popular one. Yeah, I think that would be good to have, assuming we get a little bit of extra cash. But for now, just wait and see how this all plays out. Our park rating is 849, and our goal is 800, or excuse me, 600, which is good. And 400 guests, almost 500 is decent considering we're almost into year 2. So in reality, this shouldn't be too difficult of a scenario, but there's definitely ways that you can mess it up. Let's say if you spend too much of your money too soon, then it can get pretty disastrous, and I can't believe that there's litter right here when there's literally litter bins right next to it. These guests make a lot of sense sometimes. I don't think it's too much, but we're gonna go down to 370 just in case. Yeah, that works. We want to charge a little bit higher than we do for regular rides. Makes sense for coasters, at least in my opinion it does. But then again, it could be different for every single person, which I think is, again, something really unique about these kind of games. Every single player can have their own approach to completing the scenarios of this game, which I think is a lot of fun and one of the most unique things about these kind of games. There is a topic for me to discuss now that I am playing this level in the way that I am, and that topic is referred to as flow. And this was stated in the Dictionary of Video Game Terms from Jewel, and flow is when the player reaches an ideal state of mind through their occupation of a task that matches their individual intellectual abilities. What that means is I can basically sit here and get lost playing this game, because I've done it so many times and I've become accustomed to the rules and the structures provided. I've taken the time to get an understanding of how the game works through its procedurality, through its procedural rhetoric, able to determine how to best go about a level in any way that I see fit. And because of that, the blanks slate allows me to approach in any way that I can see fit, and I'm able to just literally sit here and get lost in the gameplay for ample amounts of time. I have in the past, and I'm most likely going to continue to do so every single time I play this game, just because I've taken the time to learn how it works and gain an understanding of its mechanics, and it's encouraged. There's no limit to how often you can just sit here and watch your park unfold before your very eyes, which I think is a lot of fun and really, really cool. I love the little screams of the guests when they ride the coasters. I think that's absolutely hilarious, and one of my most favorite and memorable things about this game, honestly. His personality, despite the guests having the same model and pretty much behaving the same way as every other guest in the game. I think I've spotted an issue. I think that the queue for Castle Capers is too long. And because of that, guests are starting to get upset. The tidiest park in the country. We will definitely take those awards. See, I've been queuing for ages. See, that's the problem that I have with rides like the Maze, is that while they do make some money, the problem is it's like only a small number of guests at one time, and guests wait in this queue and they start to get upset. And at some point, guests can get so upset that they can actually turn into vandals that can destroy your park. I'm not kidding. So I think we're just going to delete this. Now it's a matter of making sure these guests get back to the main part of the park okay, but I think that might have been the biggest issue, if I'm being really honest. Deleting this extra pass should help. And yeah, I think that was the problem, is that there were way too many guests waiting in line for too long, and they started to get upset, and that's not good for getting our rating up, which is one of the things that we need to do in order to beat this level. So I'm glad we caught that. And, we gained some of that money back that we were actually probably losing, if we're being completely honest, for having the maze there for so long. So that's part of the strategy that you learn from playing this game so many times. You become accustomed to telling yourself, okay, if that didn't work this time, then maybe we can try this another time, You get to approach it in a different way. Putting down a balloon stand just because it's like a custom to have in these kind of games. You begin to learn the procedure of this game and telling yourself, okay, this worked, this didn't. Now that we know this didn't work, we can try X, Y, and Z. Definitely one of the most unique features of a game like this. So, I think this area we might be for that new top spin that we got. I think for the most part we're doing okay. We just have 1,000 more guests, and we're almost at the end of year one. So I think we're at least, if nothing else, we're making progress. That's the most important thing here. And we'll definitely take that over not being able to say that we can fully beat this level. There is a way, well, actually, I'm going to go ahead and save my game. We don't want any disaster to occur. These are all my save files here. Yeah, replace that because this crazy castle is a lot better. I was gonna say something about that. Oh, so there are modded versions of Roller Coaster Tycoon 2. In those modded versions, players have the ability to actually speed up time in the game. We do not have that ability here. Or at least I thought we did, but I don't see it. So that leads me to believe that no, we don't have the ability to speed up time. We only have the ability to pause, which is fine because honestly, speeding up time kind of feels like cheating in a sense. The game encourages you to play by its schedule and to learn the terms of the game in your time while staying within the confined rules and structure of the game itself, if that makes any sense. Basically what I'm trying to say is that the game doesn't want you to fast forward. It wants you just to play the level and to gain a better understanding of the game. And the way to do that is not by speeding up time. It's by sitting down and figuring out what strategies work best and going from there. The speeding up time is also it's something that is a factor for a lot of Tycoon games, but I think it's more of a factor for the professional players, I would say, the players that have more experience with these kind of games. Um, in terms of the new players, you don't really see, um, it's not really encouraged for them to speed up aspects of the game because, that's not how players are able to learn. You're not going to learn aspects of Roller Coaster Tycoon 2 if you decide to speed up in-game mechanics, and it leaves out certain aspects of being able to slow down and experimenting, finding out what works and what doesn't, and being able to approach the level without feeling like there's a constraint of a time limit. So that's basically why that aspect isn't was never really a feature in a lot of these games, and honestly, it makes sense, at least in my opinion. Okay, so we're nearing the end of year one, and we have 500 out of the 1,500 required guests. So I think we're doing a pretty solid job so far. Um, Now it's just a matter of seeing what other rides we could possibly put in the park and seeing other ways we can bring in some extra money. There is no real discouragement of taking out loans. The biggest discouragement is obviously running out of money. Um, in later games, Roller Coaster Tycoon games, in particular the third uh, installment of Roller Coaster Tycoon, the funds become unlimited. And this is a huge draw to new players, which I think is pretty interesting that they decided to put that in the third game compared to like the first two. I think mainly a lot of that has to do with feedback that they received, maybe saying that the game was too hard or players were finding it to be more difficult to make money. So they implemented the unlimited fun feature to obviously add more elements of customizability. I think also a lot of that has to do with the new PCs and computers that were released, causing, or should I say, requiring um, more. How do I say this? I guess the graphics were higher, and so it makes sense that uh, the games would require uh, more aspects of customization to be able to accommodate for the new mechanics of the PCs. Uh, at the bottom, as you can see here, one of the crucial aspects of the game is that rides do tend to break down over time, and so it is encouraged with, I believe it's this tab right here that looks like a screwdriver, uh, that the mechanics inspect rides more frequently to prevent less breakdowns. So I'm going to go ahead and set that to where I want the more important rides to be inspected more quickly using using the two mechanics that we have now. Because when the rides break down, then guests are stuck in queues, or God forbid they're stuck on the ride, and it becomes more difficult to make extra money. So I think it's just a easier way to prevent disaster from happening in a sense. Let's put a hat stall down. That's fun, right? Okay, we are in March of year 2. I didn't even realize that we reached year 2 already. And we are at 558 guests, which is good. Uh, but we got to aim for that 1500 mark. We're getting somewhat close. Oh no, our big ride broke down here on the bottom. As you can see here, our mechanic is slowly making his way over. Taking the scenic route, I guess. But shouldn't be too much of a worry, as long as he's here sooner rather than later. Also, I just realized this mechanic is in the middle of the screen for some reason. Okay, let's see. We have 700. What can we build? Another. Excuse me, I apologize. Another coaster would be ideal. I think I'm going to go with this one because it's pretty small. We're going to go ahead and take out another loan. And we'll put that coaster right here. And yeah, this is another cute, tiny little coaster. Nothing too crazy, and it's a custom design that was already made. I could go ahead and make a custom one, but I think just because, for the sake of time, I'm going to go ahead and place this one already down. Not too green. Yeah, let's go with that. Castle Crusader still has not been fixed. That's a problem. That means that our mechanic is taking a... Oh, he's at the ride now. Okay, so not a huge problem, but we don't want that to happen again because then guests would start getting upset and we would start losing some money, which would be bad. So thankfully, major crisis averted, but still, don't want that to happen again. Instead of fungicide, which sounds mildly unpleasant for a castle park, let's call this cavalry. I cannot spell today. Something that starts with a C. I'm gonna, let's do the Crimson Cavalry, and let's theme the coaster around that. Let's make him kind of a crimson color. Yeah, that's unique, right? The track is going to be red as well. Yeah, I like that. It's got like a little bit of a darker theme to it. I think that works really well. Let's go ahead and test this, even though we know that it's fully functional because of its custom design. But we'll go ahead and open it to the public anyway. And what's really cool is guests will stop and look and almost like they're mesmerized. Like, wow, look at that new ride. It's just been built for the park. It's so cool that the guests have a little bit of a level of personality to them. Despite them being the same simple model. So hopefully guests decide to come on this ride. Let's see if anyone has any thoughts about it. Nothing yet, probably just because this ride literally just opened. But hopefully we'll get some takers soon enough. There we go. We got one. Slowly but surely. See? as I had stated, a lot of this game is centered around waiting and seeing how things unfold. It's about building a park in real time and staying within the mechanics of the game to see how the system works. And now that we've done that, we just sit back and watch everything happen before our very eyes, and hopefully it'll pay off in the end as we meet our objectives. And it looks like we're on a pretty good track to do so. So, like I said, it's just a matter of time. So I'm going to do something to attract more guests to the park. I'm going to start an advertising campaign using the 4,000 that we have. It's $3.50 per week. So, if I'm able to calculate this, yeah, let's do a 6-week campaign. Let's do a full campaign that will advertise for the park and hopefully get some extra guests in here. We'll pay back our loan in the meantime, because we're going to be in the red soon enough. So I know I kind of went against what I was saying, but at the same time, I'm basically like trying to get this done as quick as we can. But at the same time, that just means staying within the grounds of this game, which is perfectly manageable in my opinion. Ooh, the Virginia reel. That's an interesting one. I usually try to stay away from that one because that one is a high nausea rating, and I am not a fan of that personally. But then again, someone else out there playing this game would say that, oh, absolutely, they would love to have that kind of coaster in their park. Like I said, every player has their own freedom of choice when it comes to what they decide to place in their park, including this terrifying looking cotton candy stall, which I find to be hilarious. I'm looking at it now. But it's one of the things that's encouraged about these kind of games, that you can literally approach it any way that you see fit, so long as your main goal is to complete the level. And that's exactly what we intend to do. Okay. I guess I'll take a moment to explain the difficulty of the levels in this kind of game. So as I had stated, Crazy Castle, the level that we're playing right now, is a beginner's level. There was challenging, there was expert, and besides all like the real and the other levels in this game that had to tie in with Six Flags. So, the objectives of these levels get very, very difficult in some of the higher categories. For instance, there are some levels, Crazy Castle, one of our goals is to make sure we have a park rating of 600, which we currently have 870, so that's well above our required number. In some levels, if a park rating drops below a certain level, the game is over. The level ends, and you have to start over from the beginning. This becomes extremely frustrating and challenging when you just get to the end and then something happens that causes the level to end. Let's say guests become majorly unhappy, rides break down, things of that nature. As I stated, there's no penalty for playing a level over and over, but it can get extremely upsetting when that does happen. And that has happened. Any player is accustomed to having that kind of thing happen in the game, because There is no absolute set way to approach a level. Every single person's way of approaching said level is different. And so therefore, what might have occurred in one playthrough can be completely different in the next. And I think there's definitely uh, a very, very noticeable difficulty curve when it comes to um, the levels that are played. You'll notice that a lot of the expert levels, there are certain aspects, whereas the beginner levels are a lot more open as to how you approach level. With the expert and the harder levels, or should I say the challenging levels, there's certain boundaries that are met, as opposed to there's still the same blank slate with letting the player decide to approach the level in a certain way, but the grounds of getting the particular objectives met become a lot more different, if that makes sense. And that's definitely one of the most unique things about a game like Roller Coaster Tycoon 2, is that everybody learns the game in the same way, but how they go about approaching levels becomes exponentially different from one another. And I think that is extremely unique to consider. And I think that's a common feature among a lot of Tycoon games that I've come across, is that uh, the easy levels are easy for a reason. They encourage new players to learn the aspects of the game, to become comfortable with how certain mechanics work, and then it's up to the players themselves to figure it out on their own, as opposed to the game deciding, okay, you know how to play, but do you know how to play with a little bit of an extra challenge? And so I think that is definitely unique, interesting, and adds a little bit of a challenge, as opposed to just letting the player free roam and create a park in the way that they choose. They're still able to do so, but there's a little bit of an extra skill level required in order to meet certain objectives that the game is asking the player to do. That's pretty much all I have to say about that. As we approach the hour-and-a-half mark on this video, we are at 700 guests, and that number is rising as our advertising campaign continues to hopefully pull in some more numbers. I think we'll go ahead and throw in an extra ride or two just to add some variety. And I think that a water ride would be really, really good. But I don't know how to access this area of the level without guests getting lost. And I'm not going to take the extra funds to put in bodies of water that are only going to be used for one certain thing. So I think we're just going to play it safe and go with the rides that we've been doing. And so I think for the purposes of this, I'm going to choose a... I'm going to go with the observation tower. I think it would look really cool. Yeah, right in the middle of the coaster. I love when things just work out like that. Let's go nice and high, a view of the entire park. Let's stop at 300 feet. And we'll go ahead and put in the entrance and exit. That's good. Usually it's a pretty easy ride to generate some extra funds, which I am all for, especially in scenarios like this. Every castle is an observation tower, right? Let's go ahead and switch up the colors a little bit. Stick with the theme of the park. Yeah, that works for me. And there we go. And what's cool is that we built that, so now we can go over to this side of the park and build another thing. Well, The left side with the ride gets to basically manage on its own and make as much money as possible. I think that's definitely one of the most unique aspects of this game. And you know what? I'm being drawn towards making a custom design, so I think we're going to go ahead and do that. Let's go with... I want to do one of the cars or the copters. I don't want to do a monorail cycle. Let's go with the vintage car. I think that'd be kind of cute. And I'm going to do something kind of fun here. So we'll start with the station. Let's go right there. Okay, and bring the path out here, and I'm going to do something kind of cool. We're going to bring this path up, and we're going to bring this ride underground. We're going to use this tool here to raise the land. And there we go. Look at that. We have a little special underground ride, which I think is really fun. And I used to do this all the time in this game. I actually have a story of this game now that I'm thinking about it. But I think this is just a really fun aspect that players are able to do this with their park and make some really interesting and fun, unique designs. Just going to come back out. It's going to go straight and curve in and go back underground, which is really, really fun. Oh, car's in the way, so we'll go ahead and curve this way and go that way. And we'll go back down. Nothing too crazy, but, you know, just something different. I just figured this would be pretty fun. Add some variety to the park. And I also think that the way that the track design works is really easy for players to use, and it's encouraged for players to kind of step out of the norm and do something different. Oops. Oh no. This is gonna be tricky. We are in the red, so this could be pretty disastrous if we're not careful. I'm just gonna hope that it works out, which hopefully it should with a ride like this. I'm just gonna hope for the best, I guess. I'm gonna delete this really quick. Go right there. Nice long queue ride for the cars. I mean, we have to go with the castle cars. There's no other name that I see fit. That was so much fun, designing that little track right there. 16 is a bit too much. Let's go like 8, I guess. Let me see. Is that too much? No, that's perfect, actually. And we're going to add some castle scenery on top. Let's go with one of these. And maybe... yeah, that works. Just to mix it up, I guess. Pay back some of our loan. Alright, good. And I think that's good. So hopefully guests find this to be pretty fun. I think it's really cool. Oh, I want to do something else. Can I add a... Oop. I don't know if I can add the door or not. Oh, I can? Does that work? Oh, that's cool. It's a little drawbridge. Isn't that fun? Hmm. There's so many unique customization options. And you can hear it's like a little drawbridge going up. There we go. Perfect. Alright, that was cool. So yeah, there's so many unique customization options in this game, and it is all within the limits of the game. Um, there is a modern version of this game that I discussed in my artifact presentation. The game is called Planet Coaster. And one of the biggest things of that game is that it allows players to uh, create their own designs and upload it to, I don't know what the term is, I'm just going to say the cloud. We'll just call it the cloud for now. And people can, ooh, Cheshire Cats. Oh, that's cute. um, People can use the designs made by other players in their parks. And I think that's definitely one of the key things to games nowadays is that, um, including like The Sims, it was a big deal to allow players to be able to mod in their own designs uploaded to, I think it was like the library. I don't remember the exact term off the top of my head. Um, but with this one, with Roller Coaster Tycoon 2, a lot of the design is from the player itself. One of the most cool things that I discovered later when playing this game is on the menu, which I'll demonstrate after I complete this level, is that there's an area that is specifically built for players to design rides, or excuse me, design. Um, they pick a coaster, and they're able to design their own track. And if they feel perfectly satisfied with it, they can save the design and use that in later scenarios of the game. There's also a custom scenario editor where players can design their own park, their own blank slate, essentially, for uh, players who happen to be on their computer to use. There was no online capability in 1990, but eventually it was encouraged and it was brought into games like Planet Coaster um, because of the advancement of online gaming. But for games like this, it was all about the player experimenting on their own and finding ways to design coasters that they saw to be uh, fit and what worked for them, and they were able to use these designs and bring it into their own scenarios that they completed in the game, which I think was really innovative and really fun for a game like this to have such ambition, despite it being so uh, primitive in a sense. So that's definitely one of the most unique points of a game like this. Medium, low, low. That is higher than I expected, so we're going to go ahead and raise the price. Because, like I said, we got to make max that loan money. 800 guests, really, really good, considering that we're not even into year 3 yet. And like I said, I think it's really good that I decided to pick a beginner scenario for you all here. So now it's just a matter of building some more basic rides. Eventually, maybe if I get some more money, I'll be able to build a coaster, but for now, I think we're doing fine with the amount of rides that we have and adding on to that, which I'm going to do. So right now, let's go ahead and build this crooked house because I don't know, why not? Unique approach. Someone would look at that and be like, really? The crooked house? And they'd be like, yeah, absolutely. Go ahead. It works for me. And I think we're gonna... Whoa! Whoa! What the heck? Oh, that is not good. I am glad I noticed that. Uh, this whole area of the vomit right now, that would have killed any park rating that we had I not noticed it sooner. Oh my goodness, that could have been really disastrous. So I'm glad I was able to spot that while I did. There are certain things in this game that can really deteriorate your park rating. I'm going to go ahead and discuss that as one of the big strategies of this game. The park rating, as I've stated, is this green bar down here on the bottom. One of the goals of this level is to get that up to 600, and as you can see, it's gone down a little bit, presumably because of all the vomit that's everywhere, which is disturbing, but you know, it happens. Oh my goodness. Yeesh. I'm going to put down some more benches before I get to talking about that. And we'll put down some bins as well. It wouldn't hurt to do another restroom, honestly. Let's do this one. Let's do the fancy one, I guess. Right there. Okay. Anyway, the park rating. There's a couple ways that your park rating can deteriorate. The first one being your park is gross, and you know that what that boils down to is that there is vomit and there's litter, and the handymen are scattered around the park, not cleaning it up, which is why this is just a force of habit for me to pick them up and drop them wherever I see litter. I like that personally over the patrol area because, you know, I think this kind of limits the staff to certain areas, and they'll miss parts of the park that are really crucial to clean up. Like, for instance, these two right here that, as I'm talking, literally just came up out of nowhere, which is charming. Like I said, there's a few things that can deteriorate your park rating. The first being that your park is dirty and your paths are in poor condition. Another being that your rides are in poor condition. They break down constantly, and guests have a very, very difficult time waiting in queues because they take too long. That can make certain guests really unhappy. There's an aspect of the game where if guests become extremely unhappy, they can actually turn into vandals, and they will legitimately start going around destroying parts of your park, which is where these guys come in. This is a security guard that wanders around your park and ensuring that everything is in order. We'll go ahead and hire one just for the sake of demonstration. But like I said, guest happiness is key, and not having functioning rides is one of the things that can deter from that. Excuse me. And another aspect, off the top of my head, that can deteriorate your park rating is something that some of you might have noticed that was the first thing that I did when I first began this level. Guests can get lost, and that is a problem. So because I blocked off this part here with a no entry sign, guests are, or at least should be able to find the exit faster, but it doesn't necessarily guarantee that they can. Not saying that the guests in this game are, you know, of a lower IQ, but that means they are of a certain standard IQ that must be met. Guests in this game obviously operate differently than guests at a real, actual theme park. You know, because they're sentient beings in a sense. They're not actual people, and so they require different elements such as being able to find a bathroom, being able to eat, drink, and rest, and to find their way out of a park, because some of these guests would stay in your park for a long time. And so it's another key aspect to learning the mechanics of the game, but once you are able to do so, it pays off in the end. Uh, and it's a part of, again, learning the procedurality that goes into being able to play a game like this. And once you've experienced it a number of times, then it becomes formulaic. You can be able to understand how these guests work and how they're able to function and what needs must be met in order to ensure their happiness and bring success to the park. Okay, let's see, let's put another information kiosk down right here. And as you can see, it's the same price for umbrellas and park maps that I had in the same kiosk at the beginning, which I think is a pretty important feature to have. Go ahead and do another ride. How much is the... man. Maybe. Definitely maybe. Let's go with... Should we do a thrill ride? Yeah, let's do a pirate ship. That's one that I usually have a lot of the times when I begin a park in this game. Back here. There we go. There were no pirate ships in Castle times, so we're just gonna have to use our imagination. Okay, we're making money, and we're making progress, heading into the middle of year 2. And that's exactly what we want to see. Let's see. I guess I can discuss some other features while we let the game play out. So, let's talk about what we've seen at the top, because I haven't really explained much of it here. As demonstrated, we have the simple pause mechanic, which, self-explanatory. Here is where we load and save the game. We can also take screenshots. Oops, I didn't do that. It's also how you exit the game. This is the staff menu. This is how we rotate. I don't know off the top of my head if there's any way to rotate using keys on your keyboard. So it, might just be this little big red arrow here. This eyeball gives you different views of the park. For instance, this is the underground view. This is how we're able to see, for instance, if we go over to the castle cars, you can see them driving underground. Remove the baseland. This gets rid of the ground completely. So I'm not entirely sure the use of most of these, but it does provide a nice level of visual layers to the player. Remove vertical faces. This gets rid of cliffs and any flat surfaces here. See-through rides. This leaves the tracks invisible, which also gives you a nice little camera shot. So as you can see here, me doing that demonstrated that there's some areas over here that can use a little bit of a nice cleanup. So that's actually pretty useful, as well as the see-through scenery, which gets rid of all this castle stuff in the background and allows me to see what these paths look like if I were to have guests walk around this area of the park. Invisible supports, pretty self-explanatory, gets rid of all the supports for the rides and for the paths, as well as invisible people, which turns all of your guests off except for the ones that are actually on the ride, which is pretty interesting actually. I'm not entirely sure what most of these are used for, but this feature was not as in-depth in the first Roller Coaster Tycoon game. And then you can also see height marks on the paths as well as the rides and things of that nature. This button here is an overview map of the park. It also shows you the rides that you have, and you can click anywhere on this map and it brings you over to a certain part of the park as opposed to just scrolling your mouse. You can zoom in and out. I'm using my mouse wheel here to do so. This is the delete scenery option. I'm just going to do this once over here because, as you can see, that actually costs money because it was part of the park before you had begun this scenario. But it is kind of useful in certain parts, as you guys saw earlier when I had deleted the maze. This is the land feature. This is how you raise and lower cliffs, as well as the water feature, which allows you to make pools of water using cliffs that you create yourself. This is the scenery option. There are plenty of options to choose from. Bushes, flowers, and along with certain themes like Halloween, a jungle, castle, prehistoric, water, pirates even, and there are so many options. In the expansion packs in particular, there are so many more options even for the player to use. Perhaps I'll show one of those eventually, but they're all within the confinements of the game, but people are able to make some really unique stuff. This is the path option. There's plenty of different colors to use, and the path designing tool is very innovative and easy. This is the ride design option, the ride stall that we had discussed earlier. This option shows a list of the rides and how many people are queued up for them, as well as your shops and stalls, and I think this is really important, especially in the later levels where your park gets astronomically huge, because it shows you which rides and stalls are open. You can also have the option to open and close all of them at once if you choose to do so, as well as your kiosks such as your restrooms and your information kiosks and stuff like that. This is the status of the entrance. You can see the park rating, the number of guests, the admission price, stats like the size of the park and the guests, your objectives to complete the level, and any awards that you have won would be displayed right there. This swings you over to the entrance. This allows you to rename the park. I forget what these do. Down here at the bottom, this is like sort of your status screen where you get messages about research being done or rides being broken down. Speaking of which, ooh, that would be an interesting one, the spiral coaster. This is your staff menu. You have 4 staff to choose from in this game. You have handymen, the mechanics, the security guards, and the entertainers. Let's go and hire an entertainer. I'll just do it for demonstration purposes. I mean, we gotta go with the Night of Rabbit Castle Park here. The animations in this game are very, very funny and adorable to watch. And as far as I know, you can't change their wages. but still interesting to note. You can also bring up the map from here and also show the um, patrol area for the staff members that you hire in the game. Last but not least, we have the guest tab. This is where you get to see the thoughts of every single guest in your park, and it's also worth noting that every single guest has a name, um, and as I said, gender is not a factor. There's a unique trick with a guest that I think I'll show you guys momentarily. And here's a mass. This is where you can see what a lot of the guests are doing. So as you can see, a number of them are hungry. Some of them feel nauseous from being on the rides. Um, and a lot of them share similar thoughts, which I think is really fun and really unique, honestly. So, what can I do next? I feel like you guys would want me to build a custom coaster. We're gonna go ahead and do that. As risky as it is, we're gonna build a Virginia wheel. Oh. Okay, I know it's probably discouraged for me to do a custom design, but at the same time, for the sake of time, I feel like this would be good for us to do. So, let's go ahead and build the Crazy Knights. And we'll add the path here, the queue line here. It is now thunderstorming in the park, which that's going to be interesting to note. Ooh. Now this exit is going to be kind of tricky. We're going to have to do a little bit of a weave here. Just because there's no easy, formidable way to reach the exit. We are the safest park in the country. That is good to know. Put a no entry sign here. Even though it's a simple exit path, but like I said, we don't want guests to feel like they're getting lost. That would be less than ideal. But let's go ahead and open Crazy Nights to the public. Now, Virginia Reels are really interesting coasters because, as you can see, these little tubs that the guests sit in, they spin around, and so they'll be going around curves and spinning like crazy. So this is probably going to be a nauseous area. So I'm going to go ahead and preemptively hire a handyman to patrol this part here. And also because this area seems to get a level of vomit at times, so I'm just going to go ahead and play it safe and ensure that disaster doesn't occur before it actually does. Also put down some benches on the path here, just because I think that looks nice. And let's go ahead and watch the Crazy Knights in action, shall we? Would you guys go on a ride like this? It's not too insane, but then again, I think the level of spinning would be pretty concerning for most people out there. But the guests in this game are pretty unique in that they can withstand some pretty intense levels of coaster. In Roller Coaster Tycoon 3, I remember the guests being absolutely insane. They will literally ride on anything that you give them. Whereas in this one, if a coaster seems too intense, like this one, guests will actually look at the queue line and be like, oh, no thanks, I don't feel like going on that, it looks a little too intense for me. And the first time I saw that, I didn't really realize what was happening. But then I realized that guests actually do have a sense of what they can and cannot tolerate. As you can see, that one right there, Carmen L. Just looking at Crazy Nights makes me feel sick. So there you go. That is a perfect, timely demonstration of how the guests in this game have the ability to have sentient thoughts despite having the same model and appearing as if they behave the same way, which I think is really unique and original in a game like this when you think about it. So I just realized that we're approaching the 2-hour mark, which is longer than I had originally intended this video to be. And so, what I intend to do is to break this video into 2 parts, because I think that sitting here for hours on end watching me play this level is a bit too much to ask for you guys. So, I am going to go ahead and save and exit this level. But, when we come back, when the part 2 of this video is made, I am going to obviously complete this crazy castle level for you all here. And I'm going to explain more about the mechanics of Roller Coaster Tycoon 2, how this game functions, and also a little bit more of my personal experience with the game. But I realize that the time has kind of gotten past me. And to be honest, that has to do with me personally and the flow that I've experienced. Like I said, because I've played this game before, I can literally get lost in it, and it will end up just literally taking hours on end without me even noticing. So, for those of you that have managed to watch this entire video, I greatly appreciate it, but obviously, next time I'm going to be more courteous to not make that the case. With all sincerity, I hope you all enjoyed this gameplay of Roller Coaster Tycoon 2. Stay tuned for more, where we will intend to complete this crazy castle level, and I'll explain more about the analysis of games like this and how they can be viewed in a rhetorical sense. So until then, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Michael Caruso, and I hope you all have a wonderful day.